Hey everyone, how are you all doing? Um, if you've not come to one of these sessions before, I'm Kate. I do the YouTube videos, and today we're going to do a bit of a class. It's the fourth in our series, so it's like it can be standalone, but if you're like at an earlier stage in your like idea process, you may want to watch the earlier ones first. However, totally fine to stay here, watch this, ask your questions. Great, everyone is very ready. Yeah, so this is like this hour is essentially for those of you who are coming to Novelcrafter and like you've got an idea and you've generated that idea, you've built it up already, you've got like a plan of action, you've actually got an outline for your story, and you want to bring that into Novelcrafter and like what do you do? Where do you put it? How does it all work? That's what we're going for in this week's session. Oh, everyone is here. Yeah. Good morning, Michael, Astaria, Cicely, Alex, Chad, Jean-Luc, Emery, Emma. Okay, we're all very active. I like that. Okay, we want to keep active so that I have someone to bounce off of and don't feel like I'm just talking to myself all day. So yeah, and don't worry, guys, we've got some puppers this week. We have a dog story that I've brought back. But before we get into that, let's have a little look at the updates that we had last week. So there was one on Monday, I think, Monday or Tuesday, that added the total word count of all messages combined to the prompt preview in like chat mode so that you can see in advance all the tokens that your message is going to use rather than having to like add up the individual components. There was also some error fixing, sending the frequency and penalties to zero. We also added some tooltips and fixed a few things, and so hopefully it makes your quality of life a little bit easier. I've become very conscious of like the Englishisms, the or Briticisms versus American English, and saying like little versus little. I've suddenly become really conscious of that. Okay. Oh, I'm glad you appreciate the total word count. I think that does make a difference in like just getting an idea of how much stuff is in the prompt, because if you're like including the last 50,000 words and you forgot that your prompt does that, it can sometimes be like a bit of a scare when you're like the bill comes in. A time zone adjusted greeting. Why, thank you, J Fedber. So yeah, I've included already the links to the Notion documents and to the YouTube videos for the past three sessions. They were looking at your first hour in Novelcrafter if you just had like a basic idea, like a premise, you had something you wanted to write and you wanted to then work and expand on it and see what was going on. And then the second class was for discovery writers or pantsers. So you have your idea, you've got some codex entries in mind, you know your characters, your cast, and you just want to get into that writing. So we took that and we just ran with it. We used the general purpose prompt, like the system defaults, so you didn't have to do any prompt editing. And we took that and we made a first scene. In the third class, we did the equivalent of beginning if you're a more plotter. So we had the ideas, we had the same codex entries, and we wanted to start developing the story. In this week, we are doing the equivalent if you've got your outline already there. So what do you do if you've got your outline and you want to work on your plot or expand your ideas and then actually get into writing? So we're going to split this into two sections. The first is going to be more focused on chat and doing the actual work on the outline. And then next week, we're going to go into, okay, so you've got a finished plan I want to start making beats. So it's going to be a beats class next week, which I think a lot of you will find interesting. And I think it's something that a lot of people struggle on, kind of prompting for the actual prose. So hopefully that will help out. So the first thing that you need to do is add what you've got into Novelcrafter. Regarding the codex, we've already covered this in weeks 2 and 3, so I'm going to leave that for now. What we're more interested in at this point of time is how to add our outline to Novelcrafter. The simplest way to do this, the one that requires the least amount of know-how or any potential formatting or anything, just copy and paste each scene in, adding in new chapters or acts as you go. Like, yes, you have to do it manually, but on the other hand, as you add these things in, you can use this as a time to analyze your story and try out new scene orders or make sure that your scenes are actually what you want. A lot of time, I think writers will plan out their story and then won't go back to the earlier stages of it. And so what we want to do is take those and, you know, we're validating our own work. Even if you're not using AI in your writing, you want to make sure that you actually know what your story is. You've not put something in that never gets followed up. And it's so much easier to catch it now at the planning stage than to be 500 words into your first draft. 500? 50,000 words into your first draft and then be like, oh, that entire scene, yeah, that little bit was completely worthless. What are words? So just remember when you're doing your plotting and you're planning and putting everything out there, a chapter can have one scene or multiple scenes in it. So if we hop into Novelcrafter, we have a clear blank interface. We are going to work on a novel that I used as an example. I'm not sure exactly when, sometime in 2024, middle half, I guess, were about a police sniffer dog. So we're going to go with that because I had an outline made. So if you were to do it manually, you could just go create first scene, go in, paste something, paste, move on, adding in everything else. I'm just deleting all my empty scenes. I will delete that act. However, there are also ways that you can import in your act. So I want to look at, there's 2 versions I want to look at. Let me just check that's the right document before. Yes. Okay. So I've given 2 examples here. An example from the import, an example from create from outline. I see that Cicely has a question. So I had my story outline in a Novelcrafter codex entry broken down into acts, chapters, and scenes. Sadly, the import from outline function doesn't seem to be able to get the fact I have actual scenes. Yeah, sometimes it can be when it's importing summaries, it can be a little bit finicky, but I'm going to show you what we've got here. So there are 2 examples. So the first one is using the import feature. I have included the document, or like the markdown of the document, copied and pasted from this, where you can see we've got our Act 1, our chapters, and then we've got our prose. So I'm going to take this document, Novelcrafter summary text, and it's the same as this. So I could save this in Markdown and do it exactly the same way. So importing your novel isn't limited to just when you create your story. It is, well, you can use it at any point. You have the import button here. We're going to choose import as chapter summary / novel outline, but you can also import prose that way. You can do Word, Markdown, and HTML. I will choose my file. Oh yeah, so yeah, the total number of scenes, if you have a novel that has a lot of scenes in and you load up the entire novel at once, this can lead to a lot of lag because you have every scene is its own kind of like text interface, and then each scene summary is its own text interface. So if you have like 100 chapter or 100 scene novel and you have the entire novel open, you've got twice that amount of text interfaces open. So it just kind of like, it does cause a bit of lagging, which is why we recommend working like an act at a time or a chapter at a time. And to be honest, I find that so much easier for scrolling, because when your story gets too long, it just goes a bit chaos. So as I kind of like clicked while chatting. So we put this in, and then you can go onto the preview import button, and you can see here we've got our Act 1, Act 2, our chapters, and if we confirm the import, you can see it comes in here, and it appends to the end of your novel. So to get rid of these, I'm just going to delete the scene summaries so I can get rid of this. But you could see how these all appeared, and then delete act. The other way you can do it is creating from outline. So we have here, you can see we've got some kind of templates as an idea of where to start if you wanted like help from something that has some structure. There's the story clock, there's the like hero's journey. These are all very basic, just to kind of give you that template to start with and to know how to lay things out. In the Notion document, I have an example of the create from outline that I made, and I'm just going to copy and paste this in. This is the outline for the story that we are going to be working on. I'm going to paste this in. And we can also, like with the other version, check the preview. I checked, and this is a visual glitch that we're going to work on fixing in the next update, but you can see that it gives you all of your chapters and acts and separates them. We're going to go on to create, and you can see now we've got our 3 acts and we have our 14 chapters. Now, there is going to be a lot of work that we want to do. This was something that I worked on, like 6 months ago or something. So something to note with these is obviously they both required some formatting to be done. And it may be that for you, it's quicker to manually add in everything, and that's okay. Choose whichever method feels right for you, is easiest, you can get to work. And yeah, I think I addressed this before, that you can reacquaint yourself with the story by adding in your outline. Of course, I've added in my characters and some other codex entries as I would if I was importing a story in. You want to make sure you've got your codex there to go with your outline to inform chat and all those different good things. Okay, so scene summaries ×2. So when I write at the moment, I currently write in sequence. So I will write chapter 1, then chapter 2, then chapter 3, etc. This technique works best with that in mind, because the AI does read back on scene summaries beforehand. But when planning my novels, the scene summaries I bring into Novelcrafter are very into the nitty-gritty. They have a lot of information that is essential for writing the scene itself, but aren't necessarily needed when you have a scene summary for like past context. So I have like, so it might end up being like 400 words or something, because it's kind of more of a roadmap for me. So I usually have my pre-writing scene summary, and then once I've written my scene, I will then rewrite it based on what I've actually written, because sometimes you find that your story will take an entirely different turn and you're no longer writing quite the same thing that was in your original scene summary, and so you want to make sure that you've got no references to stuff that didn't happen anymore. AI can hallucinate, and sometimes those hallucinations are better than the ideas that you had originally, or they play on them nicely and it's just not documented in your actual prose. So you want to make sure to change these often. I mean, I feel like a class on how to use it as a chaotic writer is... There are so many different types of chaos. If you want to give me a list of different types of chaos, Emery, I will try and make classes, but I think we can all agree that everyone has very different levels of chaos. I've become less chaotic since writing with AI, which is kind of crazy. So, if you curate your summaries after writing each scene, or like edit them so that everything is still accurate, you can use AI for this. Like you can use your actions menu, summarize scene. AI does a very good job of condensing information, and most of the time, like I was talking to Corey about this, you get better outputs than if you've got to try and work it out. Like you can always change bits, but it's a very solid start. Okay. So we've kind of come up with a few scenarios that authors may have when they're starting to refine their outline. If you have any more scenarios, or there's something that kind of covers you but doesn't get covered, feel free to mention them in the comments or in chat, and we can always add some additional use cases. But these were kind of the ones that we thought of that were most kind of like the issues that we have when starting to write or like have a plan. So scenario A, I want to expand the outline. So do you want to bulk out individual chapters, work out the nitty gritty of how something happens? You know that a clue is found, but you also know that like you've not placed in any red herrings or foreshadowing for that clue. You may have like the hero's journey mapped out, but you don't have any of the connections between chapters sorted, and your middle feels a little rushed or undefined, which is often a problem with the hero's journey. It's super easy to work all of this out in Novelcrafter. We can go into chat. Yes, I know, we're not going into the plan interface. And we can then start chatting with our outline. So I will show you how to do this, and then we'll go back to the document. So we have our outline here. We're going to go into chat. We are going to select our AI. So I'm just going to use the general purpose outline, the general purpose prompt. I'll use Gemini Flash. I've been enjoying Gemini Flash at the moment. And then in the context, I will go to the full novel outline, which is the first of these. I think you can still see it. I will answer your question at the end, Cicely, if Corey could make a note for me. So full novel outline. Obviously, you've got your scene context and your full novel text, but this is all we want for now. I'm then going to go back into Notion. So there are different ways to tackle this. You could, if you're wanting to expand the entire plot and kind of bulk up your scene summaries to include more content, you could ask the AI to work on everything at once, which works well for having a holistic approach. But there is also the issue of not having the detail needed. Like, I think we all learnt with the new Sonnet update that it really does just like to give concise answers. And so we want to keep that... we want to work around that a little bit. But yes, we're going to start with that. Currently, there isn't a way to have the prompt default to something else, but it is on our roadmap. I think there's a feature request if you want to upvote that, but it is on our radar. So yeah, so my preferred method when working with my outline is to work a few chapters at a time while keeping the whole outline in the context and updating my outline as I go along so that the outline that the AI context has is the most up-to-date version. I will often start new chats as well to kind of be like, okay, well, I've got a lot of research that I did that isn't going into the story anymore. So I want to make sure that we have, only the information we want, clogging up the tokens, costing us money, yada, yada, yada. So I also find having the full codex as context is really helpful in this initial brainstorming section. The absolute least technical way of doing this, so you don't have to worry about like prompting or anything like that, is go in. We're going to make a new entry in our codex. It's going to be called full codex. I'm not going to put any description or aliases in. We're going to go into relations. And then I'm going to add in all my characters into there. I could add in the complication, story genre, story pitch as well. I might add in the story. I could add in the story genre, but that's a global entry, and so it doesn't need to be added in. But this is my codex. So now if I type in full codex, it is here, and we see all the relations and connections. And if we go on to the preview, the final prompt, you can see that all of these characters are now being brought in. And this means you can just kind of have it there, mention them. You don't need to worry about anything like prompting wise. It's just you can just be like, using the full codex, help me brainstorm this. Okay. A note. So if you have say a magic system, or you have loads of countries and the things like that, you could also group those under a kind of placeholder codex entry that has everything stored under it, again for ease of brainstorming. So that means that rather than having your entire codex feeding everything, it can be just the information that you actually need. It takes some setting up, but on the other hand, it saves you so much effort later on that it really is worth it. If you have a pantheon of gods, you could have something like allgods.tm as a reference, so it doesn't then get picked up randomly. Okay, so yeah, I've addressed here as well. So you can also edit the default chat prompt. However, for now, this is enough to get you started. We're going to go into editing prompts in another stream, but the basic prompt that comes with this is so useful that for most people, it will do everything you need it to do. So how are we going to go about this now? Our brainstorming, our plan editing. So we're using the system prompt. So any instructions need to go in the user messages. And we want to kind of think about referring to the outline in our prompt. So we've given the AI the outline, but we want to point out that it's there to remind it. Sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, provide me your outline. And you're like, no, it is there. So something to think about. We also want to give guidance on what we're looking for specifically when we are asking questions. We can't just say, how can I improve this? If we are wanting specific information and if we're needing a specific type of critique, we want to be specific, but we also want to not phrase things in a way that will lead the AI to give positive bias or affirmations, because AI does tend to be Mr. Agreeable. So what we want to do is try and be give reasons for and against something, or is the pace, how is the pacing in the story, go into pros and cons and that kind of thing. It helps. And it also helps then you be in the driver's seat, because you have so often that AI can be very easy to get carried away with an idea that the AI has and then forget your own ideas that you've brought into it. Whereas if you ask the AI to give you both sides of the argument, you can then read through that and make your own decision, and the AI hasn't given its own decision to kind of try and influence you. Obviously, it isn't sentient. It doesn't actually try to influence you, but just keeping it kind of very calm and, you're in the driver's seat. So everyone likes to have scene summaries of different lengths. If yours are already a length you're happy with, then feel free to discard all this advice. I'm going to just do a little bit of brainstorming, kind of go through my how I would do this. And to help, I think I might also, so I'm going to go back into the plan interface, open up that chat, pin it. I've just minimized the sidebar. Yeah, I'll do this. Okay, so I want to work on the opening, I think, first. So, hey, the outline in chapters 1 and 2 has large scale wants for the chapter, but doesn't go into the nitty gritty for it. I would like to expand and develop the storyline and make a compelling opening for this story. Please use the full outline, full codex to help me. Okay, interesting. It's given me a few scenes. So now I'm like, okay, I like these ideas for scenes. However, there is a lot of telling. Let's have Max in action, showing his skills. Perhaps they're in the dramatic final chase of the previous case or something. We can brainstorm. You mention in chapter 1, scene 2 that there is a short successful case. Let's bring this forward. Max can still be boasting, but let's have it alongside something cool. Like, think films and how those openings work. You know the ones, right? Where the guy narrates over how great his life was before the thing happened. So I'm kind of, I then got into a very in-depth then. I was like, no, I know how I want this to work. I want it to be like, what's the one where it's Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling, where it's the stunt guy, the fall guy, and they're doing that crane scene, and they go and like he has that kiss, and then they go up and everything's great, and then suddenly, boom. So been asked, how does the codex affect the context window? So it fills it up, obviously. We've got here we've got 2,500 words total, because that includes our message, the scene summaries, we have past messages, we have our outline. So the codex, it depends on how big your codex is and how many entries you add. So it's directly proportional. Okay, so let's revamp the opening to be more show don't tell, using a dynamic scene to establish Max's skills and personality. We'll use a montage-style approach to showcase his abilities before the main mystery begins. Scene 1, opening montage. The scene opens in media res, mid-chase. We're thrown right into the middle of a thrilling pursuit showing Max's incredible sniffer skills. The camera perspective is from Max's point of view. He's tracking a suspect through the bustling street markets. The sights, sounds, and smells are overwhelming, but Max focuses only on the scent trail. We see quick cuts, a flash of the bright scarf, the suspect's frantic steps, Max weaving between the legs and dodging shopping carts, his nose twitching eagerly, following the scent. His internal narration is witty and self-assured, brimming with confidence. This could even be a quick montage with quick jump cuts. So yeah, that's more what I'm wanting. Obviously, we will need to like give some more specifics, but I'm liking this. So I'm gonna copy this bit, new scene. I'm gonna drag it above by clicking the 6 dots. Boop. Max is tracking the suspect. Okay. And to be honest, scene 2, sometimes I find AI is like, yeah, scene 2, and it's like, that's more a beat than a, you know. But the chase, so I would say that would go into this. And then we would perhaps have a second scene where Sarah petting Max. And we could see a bit of the cutesy interactions. We could put some other things in. Oh my God. I mean, this is crazy. I probably wouldn't include it, but I love it. A swanky apartment building. Max and Sarah call to investigate stolen cat food. It's a silly case, but the cat, a fluffy Persian named Mr. Fluffernutter the Third, or something equally ridiculous, is utterly pompous and disdainful of Max. Max's initial reaction is annoyance, showcasing his reluctance to work with other animals. Mr. Fluffernutter dramatically describes the theft, providing a crucial clue, a distinct floral-scented perfume only worn by the thief. And then they show this. Kind of like, so Michael, when you say you've got 198 codex entries, the effect of codex entries does depend on your how many you're using at once. Like, you can have as many as you want, but if you're feeding them all into the AI for every single beat, then it's gonna cost you more. But if you're curating them and like choosing things, then it doesn't really matter. Like, as long as it's, the information that you need in your story. Okay, I like the idea of this silly case, but this needs to be realistic. Let's instead expand on the situation in the precinct, showing Max's weaknesses somehow there. How might we do this? I don't know, suggest 3 ideas. I also like asking the AI to suggest multiple ideas so I get the most out of the response, rather than being like, oh, I don't like that. Can you suggest another and another? And then each time you're using more input tokens. So oh, I kind of like that, the Canine Unit showdown, because it does tie into later on how he's like the hostile Canine Unit. I do like the idea of the sensory overload, though. That's so adorable. Oh, babe. I think, okay, let's do, Let's do a combo of 1 and 3. I love the idea of Sarah being there for him and us seeing Max's reliance, but I also love the early mention of the canine unit and setting up future conflict. And then I'm going to see if it makes us a... Okay, it's gone a bit long. It's fine. We can condense this. It's fine. Please shorten this to 1 paragraph. Maintaining all essential information, but oh, Cicely, Max has well, we'll get a friend who is a cat. May I introduce you to Claude, an arrogant French Burman cat who lives with another victim of the serial killer. Claude is determined to find his human in order to get decent food once more. So we are going to have this. Yes, for Astaria. Yeah, if 50,000 words are being fed into every part of the conversation, you would need a large context model, context window model. Yeah. It depends on how essential it is to have everything there. Like, you may find that you don't need every location in every message or every character if they're only an incidental character. So you want to kind of like play around with it on both ends. So let's copy that. I will put actually, so yeah, I might go right. So that's going to go there. This will go in here, and I will delete this scene. Okay. So this is how I would use AI to... Yeah. He's a French Burman. He's gonna have like, you know, a French accent, very stereotypical. I'm imagining Max as being like a New Yorker and kind of very stereotypical. And yeah. This is gonna be, you know, they're in, you know, if his name is Claude, he's got to be French, right? Absolutely. Okay, so then we're going to go into scenario B. I want to use a different story structure. So maybe that you've used a popular outline structure like the hero's journey or the 3-act structure when originally planning your novel, but now you want to switch it up and try and use like Save the Cat or the story circle. I believe I use story circle with this, so we will try and use another version. So it's a little bit more complicated because AI likes to, it's very good at like a one directional connection, but it often can't go the other way. So we're gonna have to play around a little bit and see how this goes. Yeah, so I was putting all of that into the summary because they're scene summaries. I will later use them to write my beats, but this is just information. It's going in my summary, my outline. Bomb. So I'm going to, like with option A, let's go into chat. We're going to open up a new chat, add in the context of the full novel outline. So I use the following, I would now, actually no. First, what I'm going to do is remove that context. I'm going to like, please lay out the, or please give me the framework for Save the Cat in storytelling. Okay, amazing. In my story, I used the template below. I would now like to use the Save the Cat. Please map out the story and then so I can see which chapters have already been covered in the Save the Cat version. And then I will do boop, 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 boop. I'm going to delete those gaps. Going to get rid of that. Do quotation marks. Let's see how this goes. So sometimes I might need to use a better model than for a mini, but we're going to see. This is entirely because I forgot to put the full outline. There isn't an actual character limit for summaries. Summaries can be as long as you want, and you can dump everything in and then transpose them later. That's what I do as well. But if you go into the outline mode, you can, if you have long summaries, this is so much easier for writing your summaries and doing any edits. And they're like, I love the outline mode. It's just simple. There's no fuss. You can do your writing. Okay, so we've got here. We've got it kind of mapped out. And then what we want to do then is say, okay, this is cool. What is missing from my outline to fully integrate it with Save the Cat? Where are the gaps? I mean, I'm asking where are there gaps rather than are there any gaps because I want it to find gaps. I don't want it to be like, no, it's fine. So yeah, here we're seeing there's no B story, which absolutely makes sense. I mean, they've shown bits, and I guess the friendship with Claude is the kind of thing. It's also funny that it's Save the Cat outline and it's involving a cat, but you know. And I think something worth thinking about is that when chatting with your outline, there are a lot of bits that obviously aren't there because it's kind of the like, you know, it's a summary. So AI might be like, oh, this thing's missing. And you're like, well, yeah, it's missing, but that's because I'm not doing any showing of anything in a summary. Like the summary is literally telling you what happened. Like, so you'll find often it'll critique you on things that you're like, but this isn't prose. So always like, you know, investigate, find your own reasons for everything and just make sure that you're validating everything. Like validation is key to getting good results out of AI. For me anyway. Okay, I think I understand a little bit about story structures, both yes, so there's the Freytag's story structure is there are a lot of really good story structures out there. I would definitely recommend going into like everything. You're asking about Claude. So I think. Yeah. So I started this using Claude Sonnet. Like, yeah, until today's classes, I'm using other models, but I was using Claude. It was like the first experiments with Claude 3.5. So when I'm writing a series, what's the general standard for using the same story outline? Like going between... Personally, I think you use the story structure that tells your story the best. If you need to use a different story structure in the next book, and that is what makes it shine, like there's no point in forcing everything back into something that isn't making it shine. Like, I'm sure that both sides of the argument people will, have their thoughts on. But for me, it's like, do whatever you need to do to get the story told in the best way that you can tell it. So where it says the percentage of the chapters, like the midpoint. Yeah, exactly. You could do this. Be like, okay, I'm writing this as a young adult novel, around 50, I don't know, 45,000 words. Can you convert these percentages to words into the story? There you go. So this, yeah. So yeah, so we've got here how many words you would do each thing. So opening image makes absolute sense. About 500 words. We've got a good guidance here. And so that would kind of lead to chapters of maybe a couple of thousand words, maybe 2,500 tops, I guess, if I was going into it. I mean, obviously you could do longer or shorter, but that is something that you can do within this. And you could also say if you wanted to edit your chapters, you could be like, okay, well, you could name it, or you could say your word target, or you could say which part of this theme it is. There's a lot of things you could do with it. Okay. Scenario C. If you want to analyze your story, so when bringing your story into Novelcrafter, you're likely aware of some potential plot holes, pacing issues, but you want AI to help you kind of nail down exactly what they are and help you fix them. I recommend you find some examples of plot holes or ask the AI to generate or define a plot hole first, like how I got it to define Save the Cat. And try asking for get those specific answers in order to prep it, and then give your outline context and start asking questions. So you might ask about a specific plot hole in your novel that you know about and want help getting answers to, or helping to define stuff. So it might be like, this scene should build tension. Give me reasons why it does and reasons why it doesn't, and explain those to me. So what I find useful is asking the AI to point out the positives and negatives, but not make a judgment. I don't want to know a yes or no. I want to know the evidence, and then I'll make the decisions. This way, you can look and see if there are hallucinations or if it's talking out of its ass. And another thing, so you may also want to know if you have too many or too few characters in a scene or locations in your story. So you can, in advance, go to like the review mode and characters. This is characters distribution by scene. So it's obviously only the codex characters we've got, but it does show how many are mentioned. So you can kind of use that as a guidance in advance. So say if we're here, we are going to open up our final chat. I'll go for sonnet this time. I'm going to have the full novel outline. We are going to go sonnet. Yeah, if you go for the bestie prompt on Discord, if you want to go really crazy, it's great. So I've got this open. I'm then going to go onto the actions menu, split left, open up the plan. Let's look at chapter. Okay. Involves a lot of tension towards the end, specifically regarding Sarah going missing, and Max's response. How can I play with pacing in this scene in order to tug on the reader's hearts and make them feel? You know what I'd love is a way to list the words and how many times they appear in each scene. Actor. Okay, guys, let me when this message is there, I will put a pin in that. There is a way of doing this. Okay, but let's look at this first. So, I mean, I love that Claude gets into the mood as well. So, building up, start the scene with normal, mundane, investigative work, and then we want to slow things down once he's like discovered like that Sarah's missing, the reaction, the oh, I like that. I can find her. I can always find her. I'm the best sniffer in the precinct, but where is she? It's like start fast, slow, stop. And it's like juddering to a halt. Okay, I like this. It's giving me information that I can use. That's just like, oh my god, this is his worst nightmare. It's instead of getting the reader in the feels, it's got me in the feels. Oh my god. Yeah, and also pupper emoji. Gotta love Claude and his emojis. This is his worst nightmare. His nose telling him something he doesn't want to believe. The baby. Oh, okay, but no. So we have that. And this kind of thing, you can just ask it to analyze your story, ask it to make suggestions. You can keep kind of playing around. So you could get it to analyze for plot holes. You can get it to determine if characters are missing or if there are too many characters. If you want to solve pacing issues, that kind of stuff. Now, if you want to determine when to intentionally slow the pace down, for me, it's kind of like the emotional beats. Like if you want something to have a big emotional impact, you want to be like, okay, no, like keep them in the moment. If you think of like films, how like when someone gets like when okay, spoilers, Star Wars episode 7, you know, Kylo stabs Han and then like everything goes slow and his body is there and it's like it takes ages to fall down, that kind of thing. And like it's, you know, milliseconds, but you've drawn it out, the pacing has changed. When you've got those emotional moments, you want that to kind of go along. Whereas if, say, it's a chase scene, even though, you know, this may happen over a much longer period, you've got the fast camera cuts between different bits, between the assailant and the pursuer, or like the pursuer and the runner, and you're moving around, and you know this chase might actually, you know, be a lot longer, but you're kind of like speeding through because of the way it's been framed. So I think I kind of see like think of films because they're a really good guide for like how things are. Like you want to make a training montage a bit more fast paced so it's not boring, whereas like a romantic moment you want to draw out and slow it down. But then if something happens in the middle of it, then the pacing might suddenly go like bam and hit you from the side or something. Oh, absolutely. I can just see Max going, I can't find her. I'm a bad boy. Yeah. Max is traumatized for most of this story, the poor babe. Okay, so next week we're going to have a little bit of we're going to look at like making some kind of scene beats, scene briefs, playing around with those, seeing the different types we can make, what we might want to try out. So if you've got any things you want to come to the session with, kind of prep them in advance. You can always send me notes, you know, like start up a thread on the Discord, you know, all that good stuff. So Astaria was asking way of listing words and like checking how many times they've appeared. So if we go to only dogs left. and say I want to track the word Delilah. Right button. Well, so we can see any time that there is 762 mentions. If we go into mentions, you can see how many are in the manuscript, the codex. It's not quite how many per chapter or scene or act, but you can see the entire project. And I guess you could manually count all of these if you wanted to. I don't know if this is something that we can do. Otherwise, oh my God, that's amazing. But yeah, you can see how many per in the mentions. Like if you had a word, you could, like, if you wanted to track like a word, you could put it as in like an other entry, have it like never included with the AI context, and you could just track it. So that's how, like with AI-isms or Kate-isms, you could do things like that. So I can see that I've got 418 AI-isms in, and that's fine as long as it's not the same AI-isms, because obviously I have 114 aliases there. So some of the words might be in there lots, others might not be there at all. What do you call a dog swimming in the ocean? A good boy. That is brilliant. Oh, Corey says he's put them at the bottom of the Notion. Let me... Let me refresh the tab. Okay, YouTube live stream comments. If you have your scene beats and goals, etc. planned out, do you put those in scene summaries when writing and then generate prose from there and then redo the summary afterwards? So with the general purpose prompts, you can't generate beats from a summary. You can if you do some tweaks. So something you could... So yes and no. We'll go into it more next week. I might make a prompt so you can kind of play around with that yourselves. But I usually put them in the scene summary so I can like copy and paste them over. Like if I'm going to write a really big set of beats. Or I will do them in the write interface and then just convert them into beats afterwards. So it's a kind of a... There are a couple of ways of doing it. And Astaria asks, this is more about next week, but I'll forget it by then. The scene beats always yell at me for having over 28 codex entries connected to one scene beat. So that's... It's more an internal warning so that you know as a writer, like if you intend to have that many codex entries attached to it, that is totally fine. But we don't want you to accidentally spend lots of money on AI because you've included loads of characters or codex entries that you forgot were there and you're like, no, I don't need these. So it's more kind of an internal validation. Yeah, absolutely. You can pick some of the words you have too many of and then make an entry for it. That's how a lot of us use it, because it's a non-AI feature. It's just tracking the words and counting them. So it's a really useful way of kind of being like, well, what do I say a lot? And then you can kind of use it for a bit of editing. Okay, so that is kind of to the end of the session of the things that I wanted to cover. Do you have any questions about the things that we've done today, or anything else? I've got a bit of time before dinner, so I can stay on for another 5 minutes and answer questions if you have any. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of excited to get into the beat writing. Like, be very interesting actually to see how other people do it. So I might ask on the Discord if anyone wants to share their techniques, and then we can kind of compile a repository of the different styles and how everyone does it, and like how they're different and how really you can make beats work for you. Because I know we all have very different things. 42. So yeah, no, I think it will be very cool. So I will give it a little bit of time to catch up. I think we're only like 15 seconds behind, so it's not too bad today, the lag. But yeah, the Notion document is already linked in the description box for this video. It's also at the top of the chat. And yeah, you can access all of the other ones here. So that's, super easy to find. We're going to do, so next week, obviously, we're doing the beats, but then afterwards, we're going to go into what do you do if you've already got some of your manuscripts written? So that will be more style matching, continuing prose, making sure that everything's coherent. And then the final session in the first hour series will be looking at if you've got an entire book and you're wanting to start your analysis or your editing and that kind of stuff. Well, you're very welcome, guys. It has been a pleasure as always. And yeah, I guess if that is everything, everyone have an amazing weekend. Stay safe in the crazy weather conditions that we've all got at the moment. And I will see you on Wednesday for another of the office hours for any of you that have got more questions. But yeah, bye.